Good morning, everyone. Here, so we can go ahead and get started. I will do some introductions of the team that you have on the line real quickly before we get into the presentation. So we are Arctic Wolf, we're cybersecurity operations. So I am Hannah Osterheim. I'm a customer success manager here at Arctic Wolf. So I work with our MSPs like Entre and their end users. So whether it's, gaining new end users onto the Arctic Wolf platform and making sure that you guys have everything that you need. And then I also work with the engineers in the back end. So I kind of get to see everything from pre-sales to post-sales. So it's kind of fun as well. We also have Brad Hanley on the line. He's the MSP systems engineer. So he'll be helping out with some of the technical aspects as always. And then Allie Jo is also on the line. She's a channel account manager here as well. We also have a couple other people from Arctic Wolf. So we have the whole gang here. Otherwise, we're just basically today, we are going to be going over, obviously, cybersecurity. We want to talk about basically how Arctic Wolf and Entre can really help you solve some of the toughest challenges in the market. Obviously, thank you so much, Entre, for having us here today, and we can kind of go ahead and get started. Feel free to put any questions into the chat that you have throughout. We have a couple moderators here that will help us out with those questions as well. So again, here, talking about cybersecurity, we're talking about the challenges that we have in the market. And by the end of this, the goal is to give you really a clear sense of, what's going on today in the industry, and then how Arctic Wolf plus Entre can really help you out there. So when we talk about cybersecurity and what's going on in the market, first and foremost, we really believe at Arctic Wolf that cybersecurity has an effectiveness problem. This has really been caused by the uptick in threat activity and the talent shortage. And it's really created a situation where despite lots of products, despite lots of cybersecurity spend, we aren't necessarily getting better protection. There's over 3,000 vendors that are in the space. There's over $120 billion that's spent on cybersecurity, yet we still see 4,000 reported breaches. And we all know that's only a tiny fraction of really what's going on today, as most breaches go unreported. So the goal is that we want to take you away from this effectiveness problem and really into what the right approach is. And before we get there, we really want to help provide you with some context of really what we've seen into the market or in the market leading into this moment. So it's really about a series of shifts. So the cybersecurity industry has really adapted to build solutions that are capable of defending the threat at that given moment. So in the 1990s, it was very basic. It was antivirus, it was firewall, and we really saw that attackers were able to shift and get around those tools right away. Next, we saw the market go towards next-gen tools. So this was like your Palo Alto next-gen firewalls. We saw next-gen AV. We saw EDR tools come about, and it really introduced a new problem of complexity into the market. So we were really getting into the space that there are too many tools, and it's too hard to truly get the value of what you're paying for those tools. So then we moved into the security platforms. So this was kind of flipped the market on its head, and it was really a consolidation period. So this was big platforms came about. There was Symantec, McAfee, Palo Alto, but we also saw that the market moved to the cloud, and it was disrupted by a SaaS delivery model. So it was really where companies like Carbon Black and CrowdStrike built cloud-based platforms. So even with all of this consolidation, even with the SaaS delivery coming about, we were really seeing that there is still continued breaches, and it really leads to the shifting again and the current state of play today. So people are really understanding that they need to understand really the security tools that they have in place and thinking about security as an operation to really ensure you're getting the value of what you're paying for. Unfortunately, some of this recognition really, it came from some of the worst breaches in history. I'm sure we are all very well aware of these breaches, but I do like to talk through these because there's really one common denominator across the three. So when we talk about Target fell victim to a pretty sophisticated threat. And yes, it was a sophisticated threat, but I do want to touch base that they had an advanced platform or a sophisticated platform to detect that exact kind of threat on the back end. So their platform on the back end, it threw up an alert, but nobody dealt with it and nobody responded. And that's really the biggest The biggest problem here is whether there either wasn't expertise on the back end, there might have not been the right prioritization, and the breach ended up going through even though they were told about it. Equifax was more of a classic vulnerability problem. It's where an internet-facing server needed to be patched. And then again, there was multiple tools that were telling them that this patch was available for months. But again, they either didn't have the expertise in the back end, or they didn't prioritize it correctly and didn't realize how important it was. And that's why the breach went through. And then when we look at Capital One, so Capital One is actually a really important trend that we're seeing right now, is that people are adopting the cloud, but they don't necessarily have the expertise within it to properly protect it. So when we look at Capital One, it was a simple misconfiguration error in the cloud that went unnoticed, despite the fact that lots of tools were able to tell them this. But again, there was something operationally on the back end that was broken, and they didn't fix it, and that's why the breach went through. So the biggest common denominator across these three is the fact that, it's not that they didn't have the products in place. These weren't tool failures. These weren't product failures. These were really operational failures on the back end. So if we want to move the needle and we want to recognize this problem, we really need to start addressing it in a new way. And we believe, obviously we need to adopt a brand new approach to all this to make sure that misconfigurations like that don't happen again. And that approach is the operational approach. So when we look at that, what does that look like? What does that mean to you? So I'll kind of talk through some of these things and really what the operational approach involves. So first, it means broad visibility. So too many people have blind spots that are leading to the misconfigurations that we just talked about. So you can't protect what you can't see. And visibility should be spanning your endpoint, your network, and if you're using the cloud, definitely in the cloud as well. And we'll talk about that a bit more as well. When we talk about 24/7, so it sounds cheesy, but the bad guys never take a day off, so you can't either. It's an absolute non-negotiable here at Arctic Wolf if you want coverage against the modern threats that are there today. Monitoring is good 24/7, but what you really need is advanced threat detection, incident response capability, and then risk detection to protect against these types of threats around the clock. And then expertise. So perhaps when we talk about all of this is perhaps one of the most important that we're going to get into. It's not enough to have eyes on glass anymore. You need to have a solution that you can consult with certified security experts on the back end. And these experts shouldn't only have industry expertise, but they should know you and your organization well enough so that they can then tailor the solution to your needs so that you can drive better security outcomes. You should be getting long-term strategic guidance from these people. These people aren't only tactical. They're helping you prioritize. They're helping you make investments in the right place. Cybersecurity, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And that's what we're on here with these the certified security experts as well. You should learn from the threats and the items that you encounter, and then turn those insights into proactive security improvements to make you more secure over time. And only when you do all of these things is really when you can say you're taking the operational approach. And that's what we've built an entire company on. We're Arctic Wolf. We are taking the operational approach to cybersecurity, and we're the leader in security operations. And then with that being said, that's kind of, what's going on in the landscape today, how Arctic Wolf got into really where we are today. And then now we'll kind of take you into our platform. All right, so using our cloud native platform, we provide security operations as a concierge service. So the way that we do this is, first off, we leverage your existing tech stack to gain broad visibility into your network, your endpoint, and your cloud. The key piece here is that we're vendor agnostic. So we're going to work with what you already have. We're going to work with what you and Entre have already put into your network, and there's no need to rip and replace. So by deploying our agents, our sensors, and our scanners, we're going to be able to take all of your data and feed it back into our platform. Once the data is into our platform, you have all of your data into one place, which can really help with compliance if that's something that you need to adhere to. But more importantly, it's driving key security insights and outcomes. So the key differentiator on our platform is that we allow unlimited data ingestion. So we're not going to cap you on log volume, and we're not going to cap you on events. And the third and key piece here is that once your data is in the centralized platform, we build solutions on top of that platform. So what sets us apart from everyone else is that these solutions are provided by our concierge security team. So they monitor your data 24/7, but again, they're also going to communicate and engage with you and or your MSP, Entre, really to, again, provide that guidance, provide the investment and prioritization help that we talked about before. And they're really here to help you along the way during this security journey over time. And now we'll kind of get into our solutions. So I would definitely think of it that we have two solutions. We have managed detection and response and managed risk. So we'll talk about managed detection and response, and we can definitely go more in depth. So feel free to put any questions into the chat, or we can have a little bit of time afterwards as well. So when we talk about managed detection and response, or MDR as I'll probably call it, the purpose here is to help you defend threats that bypass any existing prevention tools that you already have in place. You can't have prevention if you don't have detection first. We know that this is badly needed because in 70% of our brand new customers' environments, we uncover active threats that are living in their environments today and weren't caught by existing prevention tools. So again, we find that in 70% of our brand new customers' environments, they have some sort of latent threat going on. So what do you get with MDR? Fundamentally, you get that concierge security team on the back end that's doing 24/7 coverage. They help with that alert fatigue problem that a lot of people encounter by triaging alerts and really only escalating up to Entre and yourself what you really need to see first. So the highest risk items only get managed first. They can help with threat hunting. They can respond quickly by doing containment, both on the network and the host layers via our agent. And finally, because the platform offers that broad visibility across network, endpoint, and cloud, everything that we do from an investigation and response perspective is going to be faster and more thorough because we have access to the most data possible. Our entire approach here is that we can do detection and a response, but we can also recover. Because of the concierge approach, we're going to know your network, we're going to know your company, and it's going to be easy for us to find the root cause, validate remediation, and then collaborate with you on an ongoing basis to improve your security posture. All right, I'll keep moving through here. So that's managed detection and response. So again, I want to remind you that the purpose of MDR, what we just talked about, is to help you defend against any threats that bypass any existing prevention tools. Manage risk, on the other hand, is really to improve your overall risk posture so that we can prevent more threats getting into your environment. So then you in turn have fewer things to detect and respond to. We know that this is badly needed because the Center of Internet Security says that 80% of breaches in the wild could have been prevented if the organization only met the top 6 CIS controls. And these include basic things. These are asset and software inventory, security configurations, vulnerability assessment, and it's really highly impactful to your security posture, but it can be really hard to do, which is why the concierge team and the people behind it are so important. We will be able to look at, or the concierge security team will be looking at your risk posture 24/7, but they can also do a risk assessment, or they will do risk assessments, internal, external, host-based, but they can really look at risk beyond the risk assessment as well. So something that we call account takeover. So if any of your company's credentials have been compromised and sold on the dark web, that's something that we would be able to see. We also do security controls benchmarking. So this is basically a fancy way of saying if any of your systems have a risky or insecure configuration, we would be able to do it to identify those risks and then again prioritize them with you. Because of the engagement model here, we are hardening your security posture over time. So it's harder and harder for attackers to get in and strengthening your security posture overall. And then we did want to touch on cloud monitoring as well, because it is obviously something that most people or a lot of companies are moving to. So this is really an add-on to MDR, managed risk. And the idea behind that is that really this solution is to expand managed risk and MDR capabilities to the cloud. So we want to identify any sort of misconfigurations or vulnerabilities and then monitor for attacks and account compromises that are in progress in the cloud. So almost half of the incidences that we detect as a company include a cloud component. One of the biggest issues is that everyone is moving to the cloud. I know I talked about this before, and they're adopting the cloud, which is really great. But again, not necessarily having the expertise within it. And people don't necessarily know how to navigate it. And we really bring that expertise to the table. So we can help with basic things, identifying cloud infrastructure and monitoring SaaS applications, monitoring infrastructure as a service for risks, along with working across these platforms to ensure that you have the coverage that you need. So again, in this model, we're both identifying areas of risk and adding monitoring capability, and we try to simplify it for you. So all of this is what we do in terms of security, but obviously, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you as a business owner, part of an IT staff at a company? Are you going to be more secure? So we've put that all together for you, and we've really looked into our customer base, and really the data says yes. So no matter what kind of attack type you're talking about, we see measurable improvement when using our service. The first and perhaps one of the most important things that we're going to talk about on this slide is really the notion of dwell time. So the industry average is over 200 days to identify an advanced threat, where Arctic Wolf is bringing that down to a matter of minutes. At Arctic Wolf, that's our chief mission, and it's our chief focus to identify those types of threats and again, bring it down to a matter of minutes. So across the board for other attacks, whether it's phishing, advanced threats, account takeover, vulnerabilities, these are all areas where our current customers have current prevention tools in place. And despite those tools being in place, we still find things like successful phishing. We find advanced threats where attackers have hands on keyboard reaching out to command and control servers in almost half our customers. We find PII exposure. And on the topic of vulnerability management, our customers are patching vulnerabilities 35% faster. So overall, again, it doesn't matter what kind of security you're talking about or what kind of attack type you're talking about. You go with Arctic Wolf, you're going to be getting better outcomes across the board. And of course, you don't have to take our word for it. This quote is from one of our current customers here. So for organizations seeking a security operations center, Arctic Wolf is the perfect solution. To do the equivalent internally would have cost us far more and taken many more months. The concierge security team acts as an extension of our IT team and provides a level of service that can only be described as incredible. So last but not least, why Arctic Wolf? If you want to move the needle on security effectively, you need to get better protection, but getting it in a package where it's fast to deploy, easy to operate, and of course, none of that matters if it's cost prohibitive. What's easy is to be one of these things, and what's incredibly hard is to hit all three. And that's why Arctic Wolf is so unique. Because of our purpose-built platform and our unique concierge security model, we can effectively scale our security operations capability. And by becoming an Arctic Wolf customer, you benefit from that efficiency and you get better protection you need at a price that you can afford. So while the competition might be able to do one or two of these things, you'll find that Arctic Wolf is the only one that can do all three. And we believe that no one else can provide a unique combination of detection, speed, and value. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I know there's questions in the chat. Looks like we have about 5 minutes left. And before I open that up, I do just also want to let you know as well to visit the Arctic Wolf booth. We'll be going all day, and you have a chance to actually win a Google Nest thermostat. So those are pretty cool. It's basically just in time for winter. And then you can also enter in to receive a one-time vulnerability scan complimentary of Arctic Wolf and Entre. So again, we can do that vulnerability scan for you, and then we'll set up a call to go over your results as well. So you can kind of see that automatic response time as well. So thank you. And I'll open it up to the floor. Go through the questions here.
Yeah, Hannah, it looks like we had a few come in. One from Renee on how has COVID affected cybersecurity strategy? Are we seeing any new threats, or how are we seeing clients pivot their IT security strategy during this time?
Yes, really good question, Renee. So we have seen a huge pivot in the threat landscape to really more of like what I've described as previously as a brand approach, because criminals are utilizing the news and all of the misinformation to really target their attacks, specifically branding their attacks around COVID. So a lot of COVID headlines, really something to really spark up some FUD, if you will, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, to really try to emphasize people to click on links and to do things that they historically wouldn't otherwise do. I also think that when you're working from home, like a lot of us are, it's easier to be more comfortable in your house, and I think that you're a little less skeptical about the type of emails that you're receiving or the phone calls that you're receiving. So you're more likely to actually be susceptible, and we've seen a drastic increase of those types of things happening.
Awesome, thanks, Brad.
It looks like we had another question from Craig on HIPAA compliance and where our data is located. I know, Brad, you did answer, you threw in a link, but I don't know if we wanted to address that. And then Chris asked about the COVID question as well.
Yeah, so healthcare is one of the largest industry verticals within our customer base. So we are very familiar with HIPAA policies, the security rule, the privacy rule, and all that good stuff. So we have done a lot around that. There's lots of different areas within HIPAA that we're able to help fulfill for our customers. And there's a lot of different areas that we are supporting in that as well. We've gone as far as to build out specific reports that show the requirements found within HIPAA and then how we're helping to fulfill that. So a lot in the healthcare space. There was another question earlier about, does Arctic Wolf replace the need for backups? And I think it's a really valid question. The ask is a little bit nuanced in a sense. So we definitely don't replace the need for backups. We don't do backups. We do act as a repository of security log data that cannot be, changed, which is really important from a security standpoint. But I always like to reference the CIS critical security controls. I put a link in the chat to the security controls on the Centers for Internet Security on their website. And I also put a really, really great write-up that we had on our website. So feel free to log in there and to gather that information as well. But the reason why I pull and reference the Centers for Internet Security is they help a lot with security investment prioritization. Super high level, you start at 1, you work your way to 20. That's kind of how the CIS works. So I would recommend to follow an independent third-party nonprofit organization like the Centers for Internet Security to help with that security investment, unless you're doing risk assessments and doing risk-based investments. So I think another one of the questions to get a little bit deeper on COVID and the impacts to security. So we actually just released our security operations report. And since March, we've seen a 429% increase in the amount of plain text passwords that were available on dark web sites, meaning that webs or username and passwords that were compromised in some sort of data breach or phishing attack. So it's a huge uptick in that, which alludes to some other greater issues. One of the other things that we've identified is that I believe the number was 35% of all cyber attacks happen after hours, so between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., which really shows the importance of the 24/7 based approach, and that's not changed with COVID, which I think is a really interesting thing. I see another ask around the NIST CMMC and 800-171. So we definitely do help out with those different controls, mainly controls 1 through 3, or excuse me, levels 1 through 3 of the CMMC. And we've got some really good write-ups on our website as well around that. It looks like we're at the top of the hour here.
Yep. Yeah, so we can actually continue this conversation. We can head over to the Arctic Wolf booth, or at any point today, feel free to head there, ask questions. Obviously, you can enter to win a Google Nest thermostat, and then you can request a one-time vulnerability scan there as well. So the team will be there essentially all day. We'll have somebody in the booth. And then I know that Chris Utar had put out his email in the chat as well, so feel free to reach out to him for any sort of pricing questions or any questions at all. He's the person to go to really set up a demo with us, and we can get on the phone with you, talk through your security posture and how we can help. So thank you so much for taking the time to join and taking the time out of your day, and hopefully we'll be talking soon. Thanks, everyone.